Mihret was born in a small village near Bahirdar, Ethiopia. Blind since birth, her world was one of scent, sound, and touch. Her mother often said, "She sees with her heart," a truth that became clear as Mihret grew. She listened more deeply than others, remembered voices, felt the shape of people's emotions. The world to her wasn't less vivid, just different. School wasn't easy. Most assumed she couldn't keep up, but her older brother, Elias, walked her there every day and read to her every night. Her teachers slowly noticed her brilliance. She could recite whole chapters after a single reading. But more than that, Mihret had a gift for language. She spoke in rhythm. She described the sound of wind as if it were a character in a story. Her classmates began listening. Across the room, Kisanet sat at a desk near the window. He was quiet, lanky, and almost invisible. He preferred books to people, solitude to chatter. Yet he watched Mihret with curiosity. She didn't seem to care what others thought. She was bold in her silence, confident in her blindness. It unnerved and fascinated him. When the teacher asked for volunteers to recite a poem about the Nile River, Mihret stood. The class held its breath. Her voice, clear and low, spun images of water like braided silk, whispering of its journey from highlands to delta. The room was silent long after she finished. Kisanet felt something shift in him, a spark. The school principal, having heard rumors of Mihret's performance, invited her to recite at the morning assembly. She stood on stage, cane in hand, face raised to the sky. Her poem about rainfall in drought season left students stunned. Someone recorded it on their phone. By afternoon, the video was on Facebook. By evening, it had gone viral. People across Ethiopia shared it. Commenters called her the poet without sight, the girl with the golden tongue, and eventually, the gold in her eyes. Kisanet watched the video over and over. He wrote poetry too, in secret, but he never shared it. Watching her, he began to wonder if words could connect them. Mihret hated the attention at first. She didn't understand why strangers wanted her photo. Her mother explained that the video had reached Addis Ababa, even Eritrea. She was now an inspiration. She didn't want to be one. She just wanted to write. At school, kids treated her differently. Some were kind, others jealous. Even her teachers seemed cautious. Only Kisanet remained the same. He still sat near the window, reading, glancing her way when she wasn't looking. She noticed. One day she passed by his desk and whispered, "Do you write too?" Kisanet's heart froze. He nodded. Kisanet had never shown anyone his poetry. That night he copied one of his best pieces onto a sheet of paper, folded it carefully and tucked it in his math book. At break, he slipped it into Mihret's hand. She unfolded it slowly. Her fingers ran across the braille he'd used painstakingly, with a slate and stylus borrowed from the special education teacher. She smiled. "This feels like Win. Who are you, really?" Kisanet couldn't answer, but his words had spoken. Their connection deepened over poems passed in secret. Mihret would respond to his verses with her own, each one more daring, more intimate. They never spoke much aloud, but their poems said everything. The bond between them grew steady, invisible to most. Kisanet began sneaking out of class early to walk her home. She didn't ask him to, and he didn't explain why. The walk became their ritual. Neither needed to fill the silence. The words they shared on paper hung between them like threads. But nothing stays secret forever. A classmate found one of their poems. Soon whispers spread. The blind poet and the shy boy in love. Some teased them. Others speculated cruelly. Mihret felt the weight of scrutiny again. She questioned if their connection was worth the noise. Kisanet was hurt, but he didn't stop writing. He slid another poem to her desk. "Let them talk. Our silence is louder than their noise." She smiled. A local journalist visited the school, wanting to write about Mihret. She refused, but the principal insisted. Kisanet stayed by her side the whole time. The journalist asked if she had a muse. Mihret paused, then said, "I have a partner." The article published 2 days later. Their photo was front page. Now everyone knew. Fame brings pressure. Mihret was invited to poetry festivals, TV interviews, and public readings. She was grateful but overwhelmed. The attention became a storm she couldn't control. Kisanet felt left behind. He supported her, but his own poem stayed hidden. He wondered if he was just a stepping stone in her story. He stopped walking her home. Weeks passed with barely a word between them. Mihret's poetry lost its edge. It felt empty. She missed the honesty of Kisanet's lines. She missed him. One night she wrote a poem titled "The River I Let Go" and read it at an event in Addis. In it, she described a boy who saw her before the world did. The audience clapped, but Kisanet wasn't there to hear it. After the event, Mihret traveled back home. She walked to school alone for the first time in months. She passed Kisanet under the jacaranda tree where they used to sit. He looked up. She held out a folded paper. "It's your turn," she said. He took it. She turned to leave. That night, he read her poem again and again. Then he picked up his pen. The poem Kisanet wrote was different. It was bolder, rawer, as if years of silence had poured out all at once. He handed it to Mihret in the same way he had the first time. She ran her fingers across the braille and stopped halfway, her breath catching. The last line read, "Even blind, you taught me to see." Their friendship restarted, different now. There was a quiet understanding between them, an unspoken rhythm. The world could watch, gossip, praise, or sneer. They didn't care. Together they started a poetry club at school. Students came in droves, drawn by the energy between them. Poetry, once a private escape, became a shared movement. A national poetry contest was announced. Mihret was invited to compete. She asked Kisanet to enter too. He refused at first. "This is your stage, not mine." "No," she replied. "It's ours." In the finals, the judges allowed collaborative pieces. Mihret and Kisanet stood together and performed a poem called "The Gold in Her Eyes." It wasn't about fame or blindness or love. It was about seeing truth. The crowd stood when they finished. They didn't win first place, but they didn't need to. The poetry club quickly grew into more than just verse. It became a haven for students who felt unheard. Mihret and Kisanet led sessions where students wrote about fear, love, and identity. Mihret spoke about the importance of voice, how everyone had one, even if it wasn't always heard. In one day, a younger girl shared a poem about hunger at home. The room fell silent. Kisanet wrote her a reply poem that night, and Mihret read it aloud the next day. The girl cried. The club was no longer just about poetry. It was healing. News of the club reached other schools. Teachers from nearby districts visited to observe. A journalist from a national paper came. Again, Mihret felt that tension, the desire to protect the sacred intimacy of their space while knowing they were building something bigger. She and Kisanet agreed. They would publish an anthology, Voices from the Quiet. Each poem would be anonymous. Let the work speak. Their anthology caught the eye of an organizer in Addis Ababa. Mihret and Kisanet were invited to speak at the Youth Literature Summit. The trip would be Mihret's first time traveling without family. She was nervous. Kisanet reassured her, "We'll take the words with us. They'll guide us." They boarded the bus with notebooks in their bags and hope in their chests. Addis waited. The summit was massive. Teens from every region crowded the hall. Mihret and Kisanet's session was slotted for late afternoon. They were nearly forgotten until they began. Kisanet read the first stanza. Mihret followed. The room hushed. The power of their words rippled out. When they finished, people stood. One teacher whispered, "These two are gold." Success brought critics. Online trolls mocked Mihret's blindness. Some accused them of faking their love story. Kisanet wanted to respond. Mihret said no. "Let our silence be our strength." Instead, they wrote a poem titled "Stone and Flame." It was about standing firm in truth. They read it at the next event. The applause drowned out the noise. A professor from the University of Addis Ababa approached them after the reading. "Have you ever considered studying literature professionally?" They hadn't. No one in their families had gone to university. The professor promised to help them apply for a youth talent scholarship. Suddenly, the future opened like a window. Mihret's mother was hesitant. "What will happen to your poetry if it becomes a job?" she asked. Kisanet's father said, "Writers starve." But Mihret reminded them both, "Words already feed us." Together they submitted their applications. Weeks dragged on. Rejection haunted every quiet moment. Mihret couldn't write. Kisanet did, pages and pages, none of which he shared. Until one day, an envelope arrived. They had been accepted. Full scholarships, dorms, a stipend. Addis Ababa would be their new canvas. Leaving home hurt. Mihret hugged her brother tightly. Elias had been her first reader. Kisanet gave his mother a copy of the anthology. "I'm going because she taught me how to stay." They boarded the bus again, but this time it felt final. They didn't speak for the first hour, just held hands. University was chaos and freedom. The library smelled of dreams. Mihret joined the student paper. Kisanet got a campus job editing essays. They shared a tiny flat, wrote at night, and argued about punctuation like it mattered. Their poetry deepened. Life was louder, their words sharper. Not all was smooth. Mihret met a professor who didn't believe in emotional poetry. She felt her confidence erode. Kisanet began focusing more on academic writing. They argued. "We're losing the spark," she said. "Maybe sparks fade," he replied. They stopped writing together. Weeks passed. Mihret wandered campus alone. Kisanet stayed late at the library. Something essential had slipped away. Then one night, she heard a knock. Kisanet stood holding a notebook. "It's not the same without you," he said. She let him in. They sat by candlelight, paper between them. Mihret started, "To the boy who showed me the sun." Kisanet picked it up, "Even when I lived in shadow." They wrote the poem all night. It was raw, tender, fierce. When they read it aloud, they cried. They titled it "The Gold in Her Eyes." It wasn't about her blindness. It was about the way she saw the world, brighter than most. They submitted it to an international competition. Not for fame, for closure. 2 months later, they got the call. They had won, fully funded residencies in London. A book deal. Interviews. Their hands trembled. Mihret whispered, "This poem changed everything." London was cold, loud, strange, but also thrilling. Their poetry was translated, praised. They walked stages they had only seen online. Yet every poem they performed began in the same place. Their village, their school, their silence. Being abroad wasn't easy. They missed Injera, missed the cadence of Amharic. At times they felt like imposters. But the words never failed them. They translated not just language, but longing. Their first book launched, Two Flames. Reviews were glowing. One critic wrote, "They do not write about love, they write love itself." They didn't celebrate, they just went back to their apartment and wrote more. They returned to Ethiopia for a reading tour. At their old school, students recited their poems. Mihret and Kisanet stood in the back, hearts pounding. A girl approached Mihret. "Can I be a poet too?" Mihret smiled. "You already are." Kisanet began a blog, writing letters to their village. Mihret recorded audio poems in Amharic and Tigrinya. Their goal wasn't just art, it was access. They sent books to rural schools, started an online archive of Ethiopian student writers. They gave back. Fame flared again. A TV show wanted to dramatize their story. They said no. Their art wasn't for performance. Instead, they began work on a second book. It would be their hardest yet, a collection about silence, memory, and loss. They traveled to rural villages, collecting oral histories. Mihret listened to grandmothers. Kisanet sketched their words into prose. Together they wrote, "The Earth Speaks in Shadows." It was less a book, more a monument. Quietly, they married under the jacaranda tree where it all began. No guests, just their families in a single poem spoken together. No vows, Mihret said, just truth. Their books became curriculum. Students studied them across Africa. A scholarship was named after them, but they remained grounded. Every Sunday, they held free poetry circles in their courtyard. Kids came with empty notebooks, left with full hearts. Years passed, they aged, still wrote, still walked hand in hand. Mihret never saw the world, but she shaped how others did. Kisanet wrote their last poem together. She never needed light to shine. She had gold in her eyes all along. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share. Join us again for more powerful tales from around the world.